You wake up at 6 a.m. then to an alarm that feels like a prison bell. Your first thought isn't excitement for the day ahead, but a heavy dread settling into your chest like concrete. You reach for your phone, scroll through curated lives that seem infinitely better than yours, and wonder when exactly you started living someone else's dream while your soul slowly suffocated. Stop me if this sounds familiar. You've checked all the boxes society handed you: the degree, the job, maybe even the relationship. From the outside, you're winning, but inside feels like you're drowning in a goldfish bowl while everyone applauds your swimming technique. Here's what nobody tells you about that feeling, that gnawing emptiness, that sense that you're wearing a mask that's slowly suffocating you, that creeping suspicion that you've become a stranger to yourself. It is not a bug in your system, it's a feature. It's your psyche screaming that you've wandered so far from your authentic self that you can barely remember what your real voice sounds like anymore. The ancient Greeks had a concept they called eudaimonia, often translated as happiness, but meaning something far deeper. It's the flourishing that comes from living in alignment with your deepest nature, your true essence. And right now, you're probably as far from eudaimonia as a fish is from flying. But here is the thing that will change everything you thought you knew about finding peace in this chaotic world. The very fact that you feel this disconnection means you're already beginning to wake up. Think about it. A person completely lost in illusion doesn't know they're lost. The fact that you sense something is off, that you feel the mismatch between your inner world and outer performance, means your authentic self is still alive underneath all those layers of conditioning. It's sending up flares, trying to get your attention. The chaos you feel isn't your enemy. It's your guide back home to yourself. But let's dig deeper into why you got here in the first place, because understanding the root is the first step to healing it. From the moment you could understand language, you were taught to be someone. Not discover who you are, but become who others needed you to be. Your parents, teachers, society, they all had scripts ready for you. Be successful. Be good. Be quiet. Be strong. Be accommodating. Be anything except messy, uncertain, or authentically human. Carl Jung called this constructed identity your persona, the mask you wear to navigate social expectations. And here's where it gets fascinating. You wore that mask so long and so well that you forgot it was a mask. You started believing you are the performance instead of the performer. You confused your social media self with your soul, your job title with your identity, your relationship status with your worth. The persona serves a purpose. It helps you function in society, get along with others, achieve certain goals. But it becomes a prison when you lose touch with what Jung called your authentic self, that core essence that exists beyond roles, achievements, and other people's expectations. You became so skilled at being what others wanted that you forgot to ask the most important question of all: what do I actually want? This is where the real work begins, and it's not comfortable work. Jung understood that true growth, what he called individuation, requires you to face what he termed your shadow, all the parts of yourself you've rejected, suppressed, or hidden away because they didn't fit the persona you were trying to maintain. Your shadow isn't just negative traits. It's also your authentic desires that scared you, your creative impulses that seemed impractical, your deep needs that felt too vulnerable to express. It's every time you said "I'm fine" when you weren't. Every time you laughed when you wanted to cry. Every time you stayed quiet when your soul was screaming to speak up. The chaos you feel right now, it's your shadow demanding integration. It's tired of being locked in the basement of your psyche while your persona runs the whole house. The anxiety, the emptiness, the sense that something crucial is missing, these aren't symptoms of failure. They're labor pains of your authentic self trying to be born. Here's something that might sound counterintuitive. The path to peace isn't through avoiding chaos, but through developing a different relationship with it. Mindful living doesn't mean creating a perfectly serene life where nothing disturbs your equilibrium. It means developing the capacity to remain centered and aware even when life is spinning around you like a tornado. This is where ancient wisdom meets modern psychology in the most beautiful way. When Buddha spoke of the middle way, he wasn't talking about lukewarm living or avoiding intensity. He was pointing to a way of being that can hold both joy and sorrow, success and failure, certainty and confusion, without being destroyed by any of them. Mindfulness at its deepest level is the practice of showing up fully to whatever is happening right now, not the story you're retelling yourself about what is happening, not your judgment about whether it should be happening, but the raw, immediate reality of this moment. It's learning to be with what is instead of being at war with it. But let me tell you what mindfulness isn't, because there's a lot of spiritual bypassing masquerading as awakening these days. Mindfulness isn't toxic positivity with a meditation cushion. It's not pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It's not using spiritual concepts to avoid feeling difficult emotions or making necessary changes in your life. Real mindfulness is fierce. It's the willingness to feel your feelings without numbing them with scrolling, shopping, working, or any other distraction. It is the courage to sit with discomfort long enough to understand what it is trying to teach you. It's developing what Pema Chödrön calls comfortable with uncertainty, not because uncertainty is comfortable, but because you've developed the capacity to be with it without falling apart. This brings us to one of the most profound insights from depth psychology. Your symptoms are often your psyche's attempt at self-healing. That restlessness isn't a problem to be solved, it's a call to adventure. That dissatisfaction with your current life isn't ingratitude. It is your soul's refusal to settle for anything less than authentic expression. Jung noticed that many of his patients experienced what he called synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that seemed to guide them toward greater wholeness. You might start thinking about making a career change, and suddenly opportunities appear. You feel called to learn something new, and the perfect teacher shows up. You're struggling with a decision, and a random conversation with a stranger provides exactly the clarity you needed. These aren't coincidences. They're evidence that when you begin aligning with your authentic self, life begins conspiring to support that alignment. But here's the catch. You have to be paying attention. You have to be present enough to notice the guidance that's already there. This is where the practice of mindful living becomes not just helpful, but essential. When you're constantly lost in mental chatter, rehashing the past, worrying about the future, judging the present, you miss the subtle communications from your deeper wisdom. You miss the synchronicities. You miss the moments of beauty that could nourish your soul. You miss your own life. Learning to live mindfully is like learning to tune into a radio station that has been playing your favorite song all along, but you couldn't hear it through the static of mental noise. As you develop the capacity to be present, you start picking up signals you never noticed before. Your intuition becomes clearer. Your values become more distinct. Your sense of what you actually want, not what you think you should want, begins to emerge from the fog of conditioning. But here's where it gets really interesting. As you become more mindful, more present, more aligned with your authentic self, you don't become more selfish, you become more genuinely caring. When you're not constantly fighting internal battles, you have more energy for real connection. When you're not hiding behind a persona, you give others permission to drop their masks too. When you're living from your center instead of your wounds, you naturally contribute to healing in the world. This is the paradox of individuation. The more you become truly yourself, the more you serve the collective. The more you honor your own depths, the more you can meet others in theirs. The more peace you find within your own chaos, the more you become a source of stability for others navigating their storms. Now let's talk about what this actually looks like in practice, because wisdom without application is just intellectual entertainment. The journey from chaos to peace, from persona to authenticity, from mindless reaction to mindful response, happens through small, consistent practices that rewire your neural pathways over time. The first practice is what I call sacred pausing throughout your day, especially when you notice yourself getting caught in reactive patterns. Take a conscious pause. Not a break to check your phone or distract yourself, but a moment of intentional presence. Feel your feet on the ground. Notice your breath. Ask yourself, what's really happening here? What do I actually need right now? This might sound simple, but it's revolutionary. Most people go through entire days, weeks, even years on autopilot, reacting from conditioning rather than responding from awareness. The sacred pause creates a gap between stimulus and response, and in that gap lies your freedom. The second practice is what Jung might call shadow dialogue. Set aside time regularly to have honest conversations with the parts of yourself you usually ignore or reject. What is your exhaustion trying to tell you? What is your anger protecting? What is your sadness grieving? What dreams is your fear trying to keep safe? Write these dialogues down. Let different parts of yourself speak without judgment. You might be surprised by the wisdom that emerges when you stop seeing certain emotions or impulses as enemies and start seeing them as messengers. The third practice is developing what I call mythic perspective. Instead of seeing your life as a series of random events or problems to solve, begin seeing it as a meaningful story unfolding. What is the deeper pattern? What is this chapter asking of you? What qualities is this challenge inviting you to develop? This doesn't mean everything happens for a reason in some cosmic plan. It means you have the power to create meaning from whatever happens, to extract wisdom from every experience, to let your struggles transform you instead of just traumatize you. The fourth practice is presence cultivation. This goes beyond formal meditation, though that's valuable too. It's about bringing quality attention to ordinary moments, really tasting your coffee, actually listening when someone speaks instead of planning your response, feeling the water on your skin when you shower, noticing the play of light and shadow as you walk. These moments of presence are like deposits in a bank account of aliveness. The more present you become in small moments, the more capacity you develop for staying centered during big challenges. Here's what starts happening as you develop these practices consistently. First, you begin noticing the stories you tell yourself about reality, and you realize most of them are optional. The narrative that you're behind in life, not good enough, fundamentally flawed. These start revealing themselves as mental habits rather than eternal truths. Second, you develop what psychologists call emotional regulation, not the ability to control your emotions, but the capacity to be with them without being overwhelmed by them. You learn the difference between feeling sad and being sad, feeling angry and being angry. Emotions become information rather than identity. Third, you start trusting your inner guidance more than external validation. This doesn't mean you become selfish or inconsiderate. It means your choices come from your center rather than your wounds. You stop seeking approval for decisions that align with your values, and you stop betraying yourself to avoid disapproval. Fourth, your relationships begin changing. Some people might not like the version of you that's more authentic, more boundaried, more true to yourself. This can be painful, but it's also liberating. You attract connections that meet you at your depth rather than your surface. Fifth, you begin experiencing what Jung called meaningful coincidences more frequently. When you're aligned with your authentic path, opportunities, resources, and people seem to appear in ways that feel almost magical. This isn't because the universe is rewarding you. It's because you finally paying attention to the support that was always there. But let me be honest about something the spiritual self-help industry often glosses over. This path isn't always blissful. There are periods of what mystics call dark nights of the soul, times when old structures are falling away but new ones haven't yet solidified. Times when you're between identities, between life chapters, between versions of yourself. These transition periods can feel terrifying. Part of you wants to go back to the familiar prison of your old persona because at least it was predictable. But you can't unknow what you now know about yourself. You can't unfeel the aliveness that comes from authentic expression. You can't go back to sleep once you've started waking up. This is where community becomes crucial. Jung understood that individuation isn't a solo journey, it happens in relationship. You need witnesses to your becoming, mirrors for your growth, companions for the adventure. You need people who can see your potential even when you can't, who can hold space for your process even when it gets messy. This might mean finding a therapist trained in depth psychology, joining a mindfulness group, finding mentors who've walked similar paths, or simply cultivating friendships with people committed to their own growth. The key is surrounding yourself with people who understand that personal development isn't about fixing what's wrong with you. It's about remembering what's right with you. As we near the end of our time together, I want to leave you with something that might shift everything. You are not broken and you do not need fixing. The chaos you feel, the dissatisfaction, the restlessness, these aren't signs that you're doing life wrong. They're signs that you're outgrowing a version of yourself that was always meant to be temporary. The caterpillar doesn't see the dissolution inside the cocoon as beautiful transformation. It experiences it as complete destruction. But without that dissolution, there would be no butterfly. Without the willingness to let old forms die, new life cannot emerge. Your journey toward mindful living, toward authentic being, toward finding peace in chaos. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about becoming who you've always been underneath all the conditioning, all the masks, all the stories you were told about who you should be. The peace you're seeking isn't out there in perfect circumstances or achieved goals. It's in the quality of presence you bring to whatever circumstances you're in. The mindfulness you recultivating isn't about having a quiet mind. It's about developing a different relationship with the noise. The authentic life you moving toward isn't about having everything figured out. It is about being real with what you do and know. Right now, as you hear these words, your authentic self is listening. It recognizes the truth of what's being said, because it's the truth it's been trying to whisper to you through all the chaos, all the dissatisfaction, all the longing for something more real than the life you've been performing. That whisper is getting louder. That call toward authenticity is getting stronger. That invitation to stop living someone else's dream and start honoring your own is becoming impossible to ignore. This isn't happening to you. This is happening through you. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are the hero of your own story, and the next chapter is waiting to be written. The question isn't whether you're ready for this transformation. The fact that you're here, listening to these words, wrestling with these questions, proves you're already in the middle of it. The question is whether you'll trust the process, honor the unfolding, and remember that every master was once a disaster who refused to give up on themselves. Your chaos isn't your enemy. Your confusion isn't your failing. Your dissatisfaction isn't your weakness. They are your compass pointing toward a life more real, more authentic, more alive than anything you've dared to imagine. The journey toward mindful living begins with a single step, the decision to show up fully to this moment, this breath, this life that is yours to live. Not tomorrow when you feel more ready, not next week when circumstances improve, but right now, exactly as you are, exactly where you are. Your soul has been waiting patiently for this moment of recognition, this instant of remembering who you really are. The wait is over. The journey home to yourself begins now.